because the Eagles had not looked like that for a good chunk of the season. So they could be a major player in all of this. How about the Rams as well? Them winning as well yesterday against the horrific Cincinnati Bengals. They're now 5-3 on the season.
Right.
They could make another run at this thing as well. The NFC is loaded. That's what we do know.
Yeah.
I will say this. It won't surprise me if they are representing the NFC in the Super Bowl at the end of this season. It won't surprise me if they're not there, just simply because Aaron Rodgers and Drew Brees, they're playing at a higher level than Jimmy Garoppolo right now.
Right.
And at the end, it really does take quarterbacks to be able to win these games and strong defenses. But it wouldn't surprise me what I see from the San Francisco 49ers on whether they represent the NFC in Super Bowl 54 or whether they do not. But here's what I do know. This team has a very, very bright future. This is not going to end like it did with the Jim Harbaugh era. It's not going to be some 3 to 4 year stretch and then we end up starting over again. No, they have football guys in the building now who are not necessarily going to be viewed as a piece of work. They have a Shanahan in the building.
Right.
It is a different type of aura when you bring someone like that in the building. And John Lynch has done a great job. They potentially have their franchise quarterback in Jimmy Garoppolo. I believe he's still their franchise quarterback. And they've just done a great job of filling out that roster all the way around. And here's where I'll say the significant difference is in 1981 and what I'm seeing this year.
Okay.
1981, you had more of an older front seven and a young secondary. Well, this year, what you have is a slightly older secondary being led by Richard Sherman and a very young front seven who are a group of monsters up front. Scott, I'm going to say this right now before I turn this back over to you. Despite what Kyler Murray is doing for the Arizona Cardinals, despite the fact that they don't look like a complete dumpster fire, it was a mistake not to draft Nick Bosa number 1 overall. That guy is a monster. I'm almost ready to put him over his brother. I don't want to go that far yet because they're both two phenomenally young, gifted players and two of the best pass rushers we have in this league. But my goodness, that kid is a monster. And we knew that coming out of Ohio State anyway. Right. We just didn't know how he was going to bounce back from that core injury. Well, he bounced back 100% all the way. And he is just one of the pieces on that front seven that is putting fear in the hearts of opposing offensive lines and offensive quarterbacks and offensive coaches that it is that they have to go up against. Armstead's doing a good job. So many other guys are doing such a great job up front. But I had to point that out about Nick Bosa because he was projected to go number 1 overall before that core injury.
Right.
And afterwards, of course, we were able to get a look at what Kyler Murray did at Oklahoma. We saw the direction that the Arizona Cardinals chose to go in. But, I mean, if we're just doing this based off of talent and impact right now, I got to say, one day we could look back at this and say that it was a mistake to not draft Nick Bosa number 1 overall.
Yeah, I'm not so sure I'd go that far, and I'll tell you why. Number one, let's go to a couple of examples. When the Myles Garrett was available and the Cleveland Browns had lots of choices, Myles Garrett turned out to be definitely a great pick for the Browns, a non-quarterback. I'll give you that. Then again, they've had 9 million quarterbacks in the first place. Number two, the Cardinals feel like they needed another signal caller because they felt the one they had a year ago wasn't very good. So they went with what they felt like they had to do. Now, as far as the 49ers, it's not uncommon for great players, although sliding from number 1 to 2 isn't the worst thing in the world anyways, to hit the jackpot with Nick Bosa like they did, because you'd certainly need a great defense to go ahead and win a championship, and they certainly have taken that. Yeah, I think a lot of people didn't realize how good the 49ers defense really is. Well, guess what? They're good. But I don't know. I don't know if I'd go that far. I mean, if Kyler Murray has a really good career, then nobody will be jumping on the Cardinals, So I think he has a tremendous amount of potential. It just depends on what the franchises need. It's not like I could put a Kyler Murray in the classification of a Ryan Leaf, Jamarcus Russell, or any of those guys. I mean, he's an exciting player. Yeah, he's an exciting player. He draws. Not only will he put bodies in the seats, but I like watching the kid play. I really do. So I don't know if I'd go there, but the 49ers certainly made out like bandits, that's for sure, with that pick.
Well, here's the last thing I'll say about this, because I know we have to get ready to close it out.
I would go a few extra minutes. I don't care. Go ahead. It doesn't matter.
Well, here's what I'm going to say about this. I see where Kyler Murray and Nick Bosa could be the next potential Cam Newton and Von Miller type of scenario comparison. Those ultimately were two very good picks by those organizations. Right. Despite what it is and how it is that people feel about Cam Newton now, you cannot take away the fact of what that team was earlier in this decade.
Right.
You can't take away what they were in 2015. You can't take away the fact that he did win the NFL's Most Valuable Player Award that year. You can't take that stuff away. With that being said, and despite it does look like somewhat that maybe Von Miller could be on the decline in Denver, I don't believe that's the case at all. I just think he needs another situation, or they need a new culture in Denver all the way around. I don't believe Von Miller's on the decline at all. I mean, as a matter of fact, some of these contenders, if they were to get their hands on Von Miller, it would instantly vault them into the Super Bowl conversation. You're not just a contender anymore. You're almost a lock at this point.
Well, I mean, if you heard what Joe Flacco said, that they're playing not to lose instead of win. I mean, Joe's had success, but that'll be for another debate. But, yeah, it depends on how the organization plays itself out. You know, that's the way I look at it, so I don't put a lot of stock in it. Well, you're right, Von Miller.
Well,
a change of scenery. A change of scenery is not bad for somebody. Sometimes they make out pretty well. Go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Cut you off.
Right, and you know, speaking of change of scenery, we could also see a potential situation where Cam Newton also gets a change of scenery.
Right.
Maybe that could be good for him as well, because even though they're not blatantly coming out and saying this flat out, the Carolina Panthers organization is ready to move on from Cam Newton. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that he can't play anymore. It doesn't mean that he's washed up. I believe that if you were to put Cam Newton in Chicago right now, they'd be in a much better situation than what they are in with Mitchell Trubisky. By the way, I'm saying this for our listeners right now. I plan on speaking on that a little later on this week on this platform, depending on what happens with tomorrow's trade deadline.
Okay. I'm not so sure about Cam Newton in Chicago fitting. I won't go there, but we'll leave that for another day. I still think that you want Trubisky, who still has, I think, a good upside, but that'll be for another show if you want to. Now I can see Cam Newton in other spots. Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about that another time. Tomorrow's trade line should help define some things. So, you know, it's okay. I mean, the way I look at it is every situation is anybody can sit here and pick a New Jersey for somebody else. And I don't mean New Jersey the state. I'm talking about a New Jersey for other players to go. I mean, it just depends. But no matter where they go, the system has to fit. It really does. Is there a good fit for that particular system? A good offensive line, a good coach, that where the skill set's all set around it. You know what I mean? But all this business about quarterbacks being in the first round, Xavier McKnight, think that these guys are the best things in sliced bread. I'm not buying it anymore. I'll tell you, especially.
Oh, no.
And I see it. Let me tell you what, I cover a team that goes along with it. And let me tell you, I'm not buying it one bit. No way. Not a chance.
Well, you know, Scott, all you have to do is you have to just go back and look at the draft last season. And you see the quarterbacks who were taken at the top of the draft: Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen. And those guys are under 500 collectively right now.
I mean, yesterday I
saw... Look at Josh Allen and look at Lamar Jackson, the guys who no one was looking at. Now, these were first-round picks at quarterback, too. But these were guys that people were looking at before the draft. I'm not exactly so sure how they're going to pan out. Now, albeit, especially in the case of Lamar Jackson, you just ended up in a better situation.
Right.
You ended up in a more stout organization who knows how to go about the business of correctly building football teams and would never make a mistake like hiring Freddie Kitchens as their head coach over someone with some actual experience.
Right.
The Baltimore Ravens would never do that. And, you know, despite what people were saying about the Buffalo Bills, you know, going into that draft, like I said, people have short memories. The Buffalo Bills were coming off of a year where they had made the playoffs with Tyrod Taylor as their starting quarterback.
Right. Good point.
So they had good infrastructure on that team.
Right.
They had good players on that team. And Sean McDermott is a good coach as well. And I do believe that he is somewhat missed in Carolina, where he came from as well. So
Right.
they had good situations that they both ended up going to. But, those were the guys who many felt like, not so sure that they have it. And when you bring up your first-round point, I'm going to support it simply by saying this. Dak Prescott was a fourth-round quarterback. He's done some good amount of winning with the Dallas Cowboys organization, even though he is a somewhat limited quarterback and he is what he is.
Right.
But when you put the talent around him, he's capable of getting things done, and he does have winning intangibles. Brought up Joe Montana. Yes,
Right.
third-round quarterback drafted out of Notre Dame. Let me throw a name out there that I'm sure everybody knows, and if you don't, you've just been hiding under a rock for the past 20 years. Tom Brady was drafted in the 6th round, and we see what Tom Brady has become.
Well,
I agree with you on that.
Well, don't forget Brett Favre was selected by Atlanta, although obviously I think his he wasn't as passionate about the game in Jerry Glanville. But how did he turn out? He turned out pretty well. You talk about first-round quarterback.
He turned out pretty well.
Right.
And he ended up going to a situation where there were actually better football guys there, too. As much as I want to say that the Falcons made a mistake, the mistake from day one, honestly, was the fact that you had Jerry Glanville there because he had never done any major winning.
Right.
He had never done any major winning, and he was never really going to do any major winning. And when you just look at what Brett Favre was surrounded around in Green Bay, Mike Holmgren as the head coach.
Right.
At one point, Andy Reid was an assistant coach that he had. At one point, John Gruden was an assistant on that staff as well.
See, Mariucci.
Loaded personnel all the way around.
See, Mariucci. Well, if you're going to talk about some famous first-round slides, why don't we just – and we'll dedicate another show to it, but while these two are coming to mind, Dan Marino slid to the Miami Dolphins, and I think that the Pittsburgh Steelers regretted that one. And ever heard of a guy by the name of Aaron Rodgers? Okay, a guy that got slid, and Alex Smith went to the 49'ers of all places. Well, go figure, okay? But we could get in. We could research this one all day long to do that. I'm going to give my halfway mark prediction to the Super Bowl. I may be cursing myself, but oh well. It would be neat to see the Green Bay Packers, New England Patriots Super Bowl. I think that would draw ratings that would make the Titanic look like a little tiny balloon. And those two teams.
That's where I believe we're headed.
Do you?
That's honestly where I believe we're headed with this. I know that the New Orleans Saints have played very well throughout the season, but there's something about them that I just don't trust.
Right.
I can't pinpoint what it is because this has been the best team that they've had throughout this 3-year stretch, especially from a defensive standpoint. Those guys are monsters all the way around. Here's another corner I'm going to throw at you right now who's not receiving the respect that it is that he should be receiving, and that's Marshawn Lattimore. He doesn't get thrown in that conversation with the guys like Jalen Ramsey and Marcus Peters and even Richard Sherman still at this stage. And honestly, when he brings his A game, Marshawn Lattimore may really be the best cornerback in the NFL. But it's something about the Saints that I just don't trust. And Aaron Rodgers, he has a defense with him, and he has a solid running game. And I just trust him a little more. And like you said, it would just be so great for the league. And Scott, when they played the Atlanta Falcons in the 2016 NFC Championship game, somehow, some way, despite all the injuries the Packers had, I really thought that the Packers would find a way to win that game going in. And it has nothing to do with Atlanta being choke city, by the way. I want to point that out.
Right.
Because I know I've said a lot of that on the air, but that had nothing to do with it. I really felt like the stars were lining up then for us to get Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady in a Super Bowl. At the time, I'm not so sure we all thought Tom Brady would still be playing in the NFL in 2019. But here we are, and we have a chance for this to potentially happen this year.
Oh, the Packers won that Super Bowl. You know what? I can only imagine if they would have an opportunity to beat the Patriots. But I'll tell you one thing, there would be no shortage of storylines. It's being played in Miami. And I tell you what, the Cheeseheads will flock like a bunch of geese to come down to South Beach to do it. But we have a long time before we talk about that one. But meanwhile, what a great show we've had here tonight on The Real and the Rare here on the South Florida Tribune Broadcasting Network. Before we get off the air, why don't you give everybody a preview of tomorrow when you join us here for the Sports Exchange to close out the program? Go ahead, Xavier.
We're going to be talking Game 6 of the World Series, and also there's been a lot of noise about what the Dodgers and Yankees plan to do in the offseason. Both teams are gearing up to go after Garrett Cole